Will, I'm going to have him speak about himself, but what I can tell you about Will is I've known him just for a short period of time being here at the Duquesne Club since he's been here, and I found him to be probably one of the more professional people that I have met. His talents, his demeanor, and how he works and does what he does is certainly a tribute to this profession. So I'm not going to go into anything about Chef. I'm going to let him do it himself. So Will, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That was very nice. Like Chef said, Will Racin. I'll go into a little bit of kind of how I came to the Duquesne Club and how I intend to stay here for a very long time. I was born in Ohio and I went to the Culinary Institute of America. My eldest brother went to Hyde Park, so I attended Greystone in St. Helena. Fortunately, when I went there, it was a much smaller property. Now it's very built up and it has kind of a Hyde Park feel to it. As soon as I graduated from culinary school, I came to Nashville, Tennessee to work in a small boutique hotel. It's called the Hermitage Hotel. It's right up in the shadow of the Capitol building in Nashville. Spent 4 years there, and I was ready for a move, and someone said, you really need to check out the Duquesne Club. The chef there is extremely talented and very disciplined. So I moved right up to Pittsburgh immediately. My wife went to work for American Eagle Corporate, and I became the assistant pastry chef, and after 1 year, I was promoted to executive pastry chef. And for Chef to have the trust in me, I was 24 years old when I was promoted to executive pastry chef. So it's a pretty elite property. I was a little young, a little in over my head, but I think it all worked out for the best. And it's a great opportunity, and it's a beautiful club, and the face of the club is continuously changing. The first floor renovation is beautiful. So we're very fortunate to work at such a beautiful property. Today I thought we'd go over 2 molded pralines. Yes?
Well, how many years have you been here?
I've been here 7 years. Awesome. Yeah, 7 years. It's been a really unique run, and like I said, I hope it continues for a long time. I love this place. So, but back to it. So I thought we'd touch on some molded pralines today. At the club, we really enjoy doing these. The membership really enjoys them. They're very beautiful and stunning visually, and they require a little bit of prior planning. I wouldn't say they're technically difficult, but you kind of have to work backwards because they take a good 24 hours to produce a really stellar molded praline. Today the chocolates we'll be using are a white chocolate and a dark chocolate, a 58% Mia-Mare and a Zephyr. Now Zephyr is really nice because it was Blanc Satin forever, and it was a very sweet, very fudgy, very thick chocolate. And Cocoa Berry came out with this Zephyr. The sugar's much lower and the viscosity is great. It's a very thin chocolate. And you'll see the shells today are very, very thin. And I like that because it's really just a vehicle to get the ganache in your mouth. It just kind of keeps the chocolate off your fingers a little bit. So working with a very viscous chocolate is a huge advantage for the pastry shop. And I'd like to make more chocolates, but they don't sell sometimes. So. Like I said, and a lot of people really enjoy dark chocolate fillings and shells, but today we're using white chocolate for our fillings. Now instead of just doing one ganache, I actually have 2 flavors. I have a soft caramel and then a lemon ganache to pair inside of the yellow truffle, and then the strawberry and pistachio we'll put inside of the dark shell. So it's kind of textural variance. There's a jam and a ganache in there, so it's just, it's kind of unique. It's a good surprise. I really like those molded pralines. So, talking a little bit about the molds today too. This is polycarbonate. This is a nice stiff chocolate mold. This really what enables us to get those really shiny exterior layers on the chocolates. The flexi molds are very unique and much more cost effective, but I have a hard time working with them because they are so flimsy. But if you're doing something specialty, they make that, what is that mold machine that it warms up the plastic and then suction cups around anything. You can find it at Toys R Us. You can do like a Darth Vader mask, and you can do any mold you'd like. And it's a really unique, expensive piece of machinery. I don't think the camera's working. But like I said, we just work with polycarbonate here, but they get costly. They're about $30 a piece. And now, as for the shape of the mold, anytime I spray into a mold, I normally pick a shape that's easy to polish. We prep our molds with cotton balls. We'll just use a heat gun like you would use to strip paint off the wall. We warm the mold and we polish every individual cavity in order to get that really nice shiny truffle. So It's kind of a pain to do it, but it really makes for a very, very visually stunning piece of chocolate. And also, a lot of times the cocoa butter will stick in the mold where you haven't polished properly. So if I try to put a white truffle inside of something I've already sprayed blue or red, then it kind of comes off on the outside of the shell, and it's really very frustrating for something you've just donated 24 hours to. Excuse me. The chocolate, or the cocoa butters we use here at the club, we use Chef Rubber out of Las Vegas. There are a lot of different brands, but I seem to have the best luck with Chef Rubber. The viscosity is nice and thick, the colors are vibrant, and very consistent product. But I have used a lot of different brands of cocoa butter over the years. Just getting this off the counter. The first recipe I'm going to be doing is the yellow truffle. I'm going to start with the caramel base. As that's cooling down, then we'll cast in. I'll show you how we make the thin shells, and then hopefully we'll wrap everything up in 45 minutes. So today we're using induction. I really prefer induction in the pastry kitchen because that direct flame will scorch any type of custard, or you turn your back on your sugar and it's, it's too far, it's too bitter. And it's a mobile unit, so it's really nice that we can take this anywhere. So, in reference to the caramel base, we're making a standard caramel sauce, caramelizing sugar, glucose around a vanilla bean. We're going to deglaze with our heavy cream. Cody's helping me. I don't know where she is, but Cody Mikowicz, she's a pastry cook 3. She should be here soon. There she is. Hey, Cody.
Hello.
Cody attended the Art Institute, so that's where she went to school.
Shop and sing and shop cans are
Yep.
Live to tell about it.
Yeah.
Stories?
One she shouldn't tell, she said.
Your reputation precedes you to.
And this is complete a preference. I know it's kind of harsh to do to a delicious, expensive vanilla bean to caramelize sugar around it. It's a little disrespectful, but I kind of like the flavor it gives it, but you can always add the vanilla bean afterwards once your cream comes up to a simmer. And then we're having an issue with the camera. Thank you, Chef.
There it is.
All good.
Are you working? And then this is a dry caramel. I don't add any water to this. You could if you had a concern about your heat. Good job. Sorry about that. Can you see the pan? And then I use a dry caramel just so it happens quicker. Sometimes I run out of patience. Not good for a pastry chef. And please, if there's any questions, just shout them out. There's going to be a little bit of watching things boil, but I'll do my best to fill in the gaps. In the
Do
meantime,
you ever do a wet caramel?
when I have to walk away from it, something like, or for caramel sauce, I add a splash of water, something where I'm caramelizing a lot of sugar, and like I said, I have to give it a little bit, because Rick, it goes 0 to 60, and when it's a dry caramel like this.
Yes. So the vanilla bean, did you just split it? Did you? Oh.
Split it and just split it and open it up, and then as we decook with the cream, it'll kind of boil all the seeds out of it. Yeah, and it's already moving here, so. Yeah.
There's one thing I'd like to bring in that I forgot to mention a little bit earlier, is that if you don't know, Lisa Beisinger, our webmaster, is here this evening, and she's live streaming this. So in case you walk in front of this, you're going to be seen somewhere. So it's the first time. It's one of the first times we've had the opportunity to be able to do that. But Lisa's been very. She's really been the initiative behind this about live streaming things whenever we can, and this happened to be a perfect opportunity to do that. So Lisa, I want to thank you in front of everybody here for doing this for us, and she's been our webmaster for quite some time. I don't know how many years, but
7 years.
7 years, so
Been
that's,
around.
or more. So thank you. Will, you can't get away with
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
now.
and to my understanding, this Facebook Live, this video is available, you were saying, for a couple of hours or days?
It's available in perpetuity until I delete it.
Okay,
So
I understand.
it's available
Yeah, I didn't know if it was just available immediately, but
So don't sweat.
good to know.
Under the ACL.
That, infamous,
So if you did want to see it later, it's under the ACF Pittsburgh Facebook page.
And I'll make it available on our website as well.
You still live in Columbus?
No,
Now she's in town. Now this chocolate I've pre-crystallized. I prefer to use the seeding method. If you had a big slab of marble, it's kind of fun and it looks cool to table it, but I just didn't have the space today, so I just seeded. I have the best luck when I run the pistols inside of the Robocoup, so they're smaller and they seem to melt inside of the mass of chocolate a little bit better. And once again, seeding you can walk away from and just stir it occasionally. But there's a lot of different ways to properly crystallize chocolate, and there's seem to have the most luck with this one. You just have to be careful that you don't have any little bits of chocolate that's unmelted.
Is crystallizing and tempering the same?
Exactly. Yeah, that's really kind of unique. Jean-Pierre Weibeau spoke about crystallizing chocolate. He said, I don't really like the word tempering because there's much more than just temperature involved. There's agitation, there's temperature, and there's a good amount of fresh crystals that have to be added. So all these things have to align in the proper way. I don't really like when someone just says melt chocolate, seed, and then it's ready. There's so much more science and so much more eye in it. And just seeing that the chocolate's at the right temperature. And viscosity to work with it. And I work with it pretty warm, just like I said, to create the really thin shell. This is taking forever.
Well, what's your favorite chocolate? If you had a choice.
If I had a choice, and price is out of the question, I can do whatever I want.
What you just love to, you love.
I would say Felklin.
Yeah.
Felklin, I'm really having a lot of fun with recently, and they have some really great chocolates, and they're out of Switzerland. And Valrhona, obviously, they always have really nice chocolates. But yeah, there's a Mary Kybro 65% that Felklin does. That's like a Grand Cru couverture, they call it, and that thing's beautiful. Yeah, it's a really nice chocolate.
Do you use different chocolates for different things?
Yeah, we have about 4 brands of chocolate we use. I use Felklin for all my fillings. I use Cocoa Berry, that's kind of my workhorse.
Yeah.
Just because I'm just decooking with the cream. I add my cream a little bit at a time just to make an emulsification and so it doesn't bubble out over the sides of the pot. And then in any little bits of caramel, I'll let it come back up to a simmer to melt out. That looks pretty good.
No, this smells
And if I was making a caramel sauce, I would make it much darker because you need those bitter contrasts. But as a filling, I don't want the lemon to be overpowered with the bitterness of the caramel. So I'll keep it pretty light brown. And what's really unique too is you can caramelize around whole spices, like cinnamon or allspice, and that really, during the fall, that really makes a nice ice cream base. So after our caramel is made, we're actually going to then scale out. We rescale 143 grams, right? 160 grams, I'm sorry. And then at this point, you can pull the bean out. Okay. And then I allow this to cool just briefly while I cast into my shells. Chocolate looks pretty good. I vibrate the mold to vibrate all the air out. rhythmic tapping.
Does the rhythm make a difference?
Yes,
I was just
absolutely.
thinking that.
100%.
I was just thinking that.
Really good one.
It's bad.
And then I let it crystallize upside down so all the chocolate runs out and it'll end up on the parchment paper, anything that's slightly thick inside of the mold. So at this point, I'm sorry you can't see it, but beneath me I have these chocolate melters. They're not tempering machines, they just keep the chocolate at a 30 degrees Celsius so it's nice and viscous whenever I need to use it.
Will, the spots that are on the outside of the shell are made from what?
Now that's brown cocoa butter that has been melted, and then I use a pastry brush and just dip it into the cocoa butter and then just flick it into the mold.
To just dot it.
Yep, just dots. Yep. And you can toy with that. You can use a toothbrush for really fine dots, or you can use like those silicone brushes that have the real coarse needles, and that gets like big Jackson Pollock type spots. And cocoa butter is just visually, to me it has a little bit of a taste. So when you're flicking all that cocoa butter into there, I almost get a little aftertaste from it. So I just want the image on the outside as thin as possible. It's kind of the way I look at it. So, and then just room temperature butter into my caramel sauce.
For flavor and shine? or-
Yep. Yeah.
Butter.
Butter. Yeah. Flavor, mouthfeel, and I don't melt it. I just add it in at room temperature. Just let the ganache just cool, and it helps to cool your caramel base down. I thought this was a unique way to make a ganache because normally we're going to do it later where you bring the cream up to a simmer the way we've always traditionally made ganache. And this way it's just melted chocolate and caramel. It's a very soft filling.
With butter being so high, what's your go-to butter here?
We use Glenview Farms. It's U.S. Foods. Yeah, they have a good butter. Yeah, it's a good European style butter. We were using Pfluger for a long time, which is really nice. My favorite European style butter is Wooltrich. It's out of Wisconsin and it's in like a gold wrapper. We've gotten that in before too, and that's good stuff. But yeah, the Glenview Farms, we've 83% fat content. We've had good luck with that. Yeah. And then that caramel ganache is ready. We'll move into the lemon ganache right now. Now we use a lemon compound here, company Amaretti, out of Southern California. Have a really good all fruit product. They have thousands of flavors, but I have the best luck with the lemon, the raspberry, the caramel's pretty good. Butterscotch is good, orange is good, but some can kind of get kind of medicinal. Yes. So in this recipe, it's a little bit more of a standard ganache where we bring cream, an infusion of flavor, lemon zest, glucose, and vanilla bean up to a simmer. But traditionally, you pour it over unchopped chocolate, but I melt my chocolates and simmer my cream because I think it's too aggressive to pour rapidly boiling liquid over unmelted chocolate. It's a big shock, and you spend so much money on chocolate, you want to try to be good to it best you can. So this is just heavy cream. We use Turner's Dairy. Familiar with them, I imagine. Let's see where cream is. Okay. Now today we're just making all the fillings. I normally wait to pipe any of these into the mold. I just kind of wanted to demonstrate how we make our fillings. But this process takes about 4 hours because you need to bring all your ganaches down in temperature or you're going to melt that nice little thin shell that you've already made. So we'll demonstrate every recipe, but I'm not necessarily going to pipe them into the candies because it'll just melt everything out right now, so I hope that's okay. A little bit of glucose. Now glucose helps with crystallization of sugar, but it also acts as a preservative when making truffles. But the shelf life of our candies, I keep my fillings really loose. So there's a high water content, so our truffles don't last more than 2 weeks. I pretty much make them right as I need them and sell them to the membership. So sometimes Godiva candies can be really firm because they keep that AW, that actual water, way, way down. So the shelf life on the candies is really amazing. But the fillings are very firm. So that's just the zest of one lemon, a vanilla bean split down the center. I'm sorry, that's a quarter of a vanilla bean. Okay. And then white chocolate's melted. See how cool it is in here. Pass that around, please. It crystallized really nicely. It's not too warm in here.
Usually with molds, you don't want to grab them by where the cocoa butter is, because you can actually alter the bake. When you put it on the old belt, you can alter the cocoa butter coming off the shell.
Jeff, what are the occasions you would be making these?
All the big holidays. Mother's Day was a really big one. We sold about 59-piece boxes this past Mother's Day. It was really, really nice. I was pretty blown away by everyone eating them. But yeah, Mother's Day, Easter, we do to-go packages for all the membership. So right around Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have a big order sheet, and there are all sorts of different seasonal flavors, from pumpkin to eggnog to peppermint. But yeah, I would say just hovers right around the holidays. And we'll do pies and other things. They sell a little bit better than Truffles do. And it's completely up to you. If you like to remove the zest, you can run it through a fine chinois. But today I'm going to leave it in. Just make sure to run your knife through it. I hate when the zest, after you run it through a microplane, it has those big, long, almost fibrous, half-inch pieces. So I just mince it as fine as possible. I'm gonna pass this around too. If you'd like to take a smell, it's really, really potent stuff. I'm not sure if anyone's ever used that Amaretti product, but they sell those things in like 50-gallon drums, and Dr. Pepper and all these other Ben & Jerry's purchased in wholesale. This I get directly from Amaretti. They just mail it to me.
Nobody knows those.
But you could probably get that Penn Match or something like that. So like I said, just a light simmer. And that was the lemon compound I'm passing around. I just added. And then I add my cream in 3 phases to make a stable emulsion. And once I get all the cream in, at that point I would use a hand blender or a burr mixer to really reduce the size of those fat particles as small as I can. But this is a really small amount of ganache, so I don't even know if the burr mixer would work.
That doesn't put air into it?
No, you have to keep it submerged.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be beneath the
Completely
surface,
submerged.
or yeah, you'll start working all this air into your ganache, and then you have to wait for it to cool. Has anyone eaten the lemon caramel truffle yet? You can enjoy it. Yeah, you can enjoy it. Yeah, please. It's a citrus and chocolate. It's like a love-hate thing. Some people are okay with it, and then, I don't know. I think white chocolate's okay with citrus, and milk chocolate with orange is really good. The design, that's next. I will show you that. Now, if you need to use the ganache quickly, you can then pour it onto a marble slab and table it, just like you would do with tempered chocolate to bring the temperature down quick enough. But I just leave it on the counter and just give it occasional stirs, and then about 30 minutes it's ready to pipe into the shells.
Oh, you mean you ate all of yours already?
And once again, unmelted butter, just working it into the ganache. And that's ready.
Well,
Yes, sir.
can I just ask you to explain a couple of terms, because there are some people who may not know what tabling means.
Okay.
And you were
Yeah,
talking- we do have
absolutely.
some students who don't know in depth.
So the idea of tempering chocolate is you have hot chocolate and you need to get it down to the working temperature, which is normally 86 or 87 degrees. But while you're cooling that down, you need to introduce fresh crystals into it as you're bringing it down. So tabling is really unique because you warm all of your chocolate up to, I kind of know it in Celsius, maybe 40, 42 degrees Celsius, and then you just pull out 2/3 and it goes right onto your marble. And then you work that 2/3 chocolate until it's quite cold. But that 1/3 you still have warm is going to then stabilize right around that 32 degrees Celsius that you're looking for. So you've worked all these crystals on the countertop, and then they grow just like sugar does, the crystallization of sugar. So that's kind of tabling, and like I said, it requires a big piece of marble. Is that kind of making any sense? I don't know. I'm kind of
Well,
rambling.
explain
Okay.
why marble. Why are you using marble?
Now you use marble because it stays so cool, and the idea is to cool the chocolate quickly, and then the thickness of marble will maintain at a cooler temperature while you're manipulating it on the surface, if that's the best way to say it. And it's sanitary. You don't really want to do it on stainless if you don't have to. But like I said, in terms of how much space you have and how much time you have, I prefer to sieve my chocolate. And there's also a way out that they've taken, they've isolated a crystal in cocoa butter that is good. They call it beta-6 crystal. And that now you just burr-mix right into a mass of melted chocolate, and it's in temper. It's really unique for competition, and it goes really fast. But I don't feel that it has a good, strong temper. I get really nervous about casting uprights to my showpieces utilizing beta-6. I just prefer to just do it the old-fashioned way and seed it. But like I said, in a competition setting, that's the way to go. So,
Well, can I ask you one more question?
yes.
How did you only spray one half to make it more yellow than
Yeah,
the
I
other?
like a gradient. Yeah, so when I spray the molds, I hold them away from me, and I just hit one side with the white because then it's like yellow to white. And then, similar to that on the other truffle, I hold the mold away from me. I'm sorry we didn't talk about spraying molds. I hold the mold away from me and spray it with the green, then I rotate it 180 and spray it with the red. But the fact that I'm casting into this with dark chocolate, the color never pops, so I back it then with white. So there's actually 3 sprays inside of this heart. But like I said, it's not a very pleasing taste, and the heavier you get in cocoa butter in there, the more of a chance you have of it sticking in the mold. So I really try to stay as delicate as I can. But these colors, they're so vibrant, you don't have to use a whole lot of them, but some of the other brands out there are very thin. Okay, so we're going to talk about capping. Now how we put the back on the truffle. So what I have here is a mold that I've already filled a 1/16 of an inch shallow, because you need to allow that chocolate to seal it properly, because that's how you get spoiled candies. Is if there's any chance of any oxygen getting into there, you're going to have mold, which is not good eats. So, go. All right. Back to our white chocolate well that we've pre-tempered. So this is just acetate that I purchased from Albert Ooster, I believe. There he had the screen printed design on there. It's like these little green leaves. This is kind of a unique way people are capping truffles now, especially in a competition setting, because they're flawless on the bottom, as opposed to doing it with just the scraper. Sometimes they have like little divots or little pits in them. Sorry. Throw that away. Okay. pour this liquid tempered chocolate on top of this already set tempered chocolate, it's not going to be a good bond. So what I do then is I use this heat gun and I just warm the surface of the mold just until it glistens so that we get that good adhesion and our truffles don't spoil. So I put chocolate on 1/3 of the mold. Then I lay my acetate down. You see that?
Yes.
And it's really clean. You just draw it across. Good. Come back through. And then pass that around. And you can see there's one on the edge that doesn't have enough chocolate. That one you just have to eat.
What's it called again?
What's that?
That's heat.
Acetate? Yeah. And there's a lot of different designs that companies offer. There's Chef Rubber, there's JB Prints, CakeDeco.com, you can get some. There's just a lot of crazy designs out there. You can do your own if you have a screen printing passion, but they're kind of expensive. So. And sometimes they can look a little artificial with how vibrant the colors are. So you really have to pick your design. I like something that's solid like that green, so whatever I back it with, it can look really nice. Okay. Oh, this is just a bigger well. Can you take the heat gun? Get this chocolate back viscous again. So now we're moving on to our other chocolate, our pistachio and strawberry chocolate. This is a strawberry jam with a white chocolate pistachio ganache. And we've actually used the 58% to make a really thin dark chocolate shell, just because I thought with all that sugar inside of the fillings it would need a little bitterness from that Mead-Mer. So, pardon me, sorry, I keep dipping the surface here. Now this is a jam where we utilize pectin powder from Albert Ooster. There's a good question early on what pectin powder is. And Albert Ooster has actually already introduced the citric acid into the pectin powder because you need an acid in order to set the pectin properly. So it kind of, not so much a convenience product, but I guess it kind of is. And this is pretty simplistic. We just add sugar, pectin powder, I whisk it together to prevent any sort of clumping, and then everything else just gets boiled to 106 degrees Celsius. And that's kind of across the board for all pectins. I always whisk them with granulated sugar just to be safe. The puree we use is referred to as Caramin fruit is the brand from France. Albert Ooster carries that. This is just the strawberry. Get a spatula. And you could add lime to this, or I have lime juice. You can add lime zest, lemon. Glucose. And then some fresh lime juice for some acidity. We good? It's fudgy. And you can see this dark chocolate just from sitting there. All these crystals have been developing while we've been talking, and it's like fudge. So just a little bit of heat. It doesn't take much. You never want to exceed that 32 degrees Celsius, because then you're going to have to retemper the whole well, or you'll get that bloom, that grayish bloom that you always see on the outside of chocolates. Okay. Use this little javelin thermometer. Very nice. It's really hard to change it to Fahrenheit though, so we just stay in Celsius. Any questions while I'm boiling jam? Sorry, that's not very fun.
So you said it's a 24-hour process, and I see, so you do the molds, they sit for 24 hours, so can you make the ganache and everything, the fillings? Or,
Yeah,
so
I have an issue retherming ganaches. A lot of times they want to separate on me, so I like to just make the ganache, and then in an hour or so, we talked about once it cools down a little bit, then I go ahead and use it. But yeah, you could potentially do everything ahead of time, and then just lightly warm it over like a double boiler or something like that, just especially if you're doing a lot of different molds.
So the mold is at least 24 hours, so you're, when you go 48?
Yeah, absolutely, okay. Yeah. The spray can sit in them indefinitely, but I would think once you start like getting a filling into them, you want to get that capped off to like try to minimize as much oxygen getting into that filling as possible, so it doesn't get moldy or anything like that. But yeah, I've sprayed them and let them sit there for a month or two, and then just right as I need them, just quickly fill them with chocolate and then make your ganache and go from there.
Do you have a spray? I mean, I didn't see you spraying, so I don't know.
Well, that makes a mess. If you've ever been in the back of the kitchen, we have a spray booth that has a reverse fan, so it traps all the cocoa butter inside of a filter. So I was going to spray them in here, but I didn't want to get color all over the ceiling, but I just use a standard airbrush. They refer to them as a badger. You can see them at craft stores. They have a little glass vase that goes underneath it, and they're cheap. They're like maybe $20. So once they go bad, I just buy a new one. I don't invest in a very, very fancy, expensive airbrush.
You put a little vial.
Yep.
And you put the little coconut.
Yeah, the melted cocoa butter. I just melt it in the microwave. 30-second bursts. You want to be really careful not to get it too warm, because this acts just like chocolate does, and you can bring that out of temper, and then it won't release from your molds and have that really beautiful shine. So I don't exceed 36 degrees Celsius when I melt it. And I just melt it 20 seconds and shake it, 20 more seconds, and then I leave little bits of unmelted in there and then continue to shake it so it remains in temper. It's kind of the way we treat our cocoa butter here. Which is really deceiving, because someone could have overheated it and you don't know. So it really makes you mad. Let's do that. Cody, ruining all my cocoa butter. Yes, sir.
And then for the younger people that are in the kick or in here, you talk about tabling chocolate. You talk about seeding. Do you want to go more into the seeding?
Yeah, absolutely. I think your camera's good. Just like I said, we're introducing good crystals into melted chocolate. So you think of it as you want to melt everything out of something and then bring it down kind of at a reasonable pace. So when I talk about seeding, we have a big mass of chocolate that I always keep at 45 degrees Celsius. And then as I need it, I remove it from the well, and I'll take a handful of seed of good purchased chocolate that's just in the bag. All chocolate's tempered that you buy. And then I just introduce a third of that by weight and then gradually stir it. As the chocolate's coming down, you're realigning all of those crystals, which is very similar to that of tabling, but it's all melted in tabling. So you're creating a bunch of good crystals on your marble slab while you have this 1/3 by weight already melted, and then you reintroduce all these really good crystallized chocolate back into the well, and it kind of levels off, and then you have good tempered chocolate. It's kind of the way we table or we seed. And then the beta 6s.
6 stages crystallization.
Yes. Or you buy a tempering machine and then it's
Each
just
chocolate
does it
has
for you.
different temperatures you want to bring it to for ideal.
Very good. So Cody's got our well back here, and I use a digital thermometer here. In this, I know it just takes the temperature of the surface, but I stir chocolate from the bottom of the well and bring it up. And right now we're at 32 degrees Celsius, which is really nice for working. There we go.
Yeah.
Ever see someone like take the surface of a creme anglaise and then it's all scrambled eggs underneath? They're like, the top says 180. That's not good. Same idea, two-part process in creating a thin shell. I tap it pretty firmly because I want to try to get all the chocolate out of there to remain nice and thin. And we'll let that set up. In the meantime, TV magic. Now we have this one that I've already, I filled this yesterday, so it's been sitting for 24 hours. I like to keep the softer layer, for example this, the jam is underneath the ganache, just to make the capping process go a little smoother, so you don't have any fillings that are running out at you. Same idea, just a different design of flowers. That's gotta be good. I put chocolate on 1/3 of the mold.
Will, was that just sitting at room temperature since yesterday?
Yes.
In the climate control?
In the chocolate room, yeah, yeah. I really try not to refrigerate any of my chocolates. They get dull, and they always want to crack. The shells always expand. That's like the coolest way to get apple. It's expensive, but it's the Duquesne Club. We're okay. What's that? So we boiled our jam. I allow this jam to cool down over an ice bath if you need to rush it. Just stirring it occasionally. Our final recipe is the pistachio ganache. We use a pistachio paste from Albert Ooster that's really bright green. It's those bright Sicilian pistachios that they get in. I just like it because it's green. Okay. Pardon me. Okay. A little bit of cinnamon in this ganache. And you could add a liquor, Kirschwasser or anything like that. You just have to reduce your cream slightly so your ganache isn't too fluid. But I think you could probably add 6 or 8 grams to this, and it would still be acceptable. Just ready. Like I said, there's some ground cinnamon in this ganache, just like pistachio and cinnamon. 4 grams of glucose syrup. our neon green pistachio paste. And this is just going to be brought to a light simmer. We've already pre-melted our chocolate. It was? I think it's okay. Making a mess up here. And you can melt your butter if you desire, but the mouthfeel is just slightly different. Have we all had a chance to try the pistachio and strawberry truffle?
Yeah, excellent.
Pretty good? Thank you.
Cinnamon was just like.
You like the cinnamon? Huh?
Yes.
That's a good candy.
That's a good combination.
Yeah, cherry's really nice in that pistachio filling too.
No.
And these fillings aren't limited to just molded pralines. You can pipe them into truffle shells. You have to increase the chocolate a little bit to then roll it in your hand like a traditional style truffle, just to make a little bit of a firmer ganache, because these are specifically formatted just to be a nice, soft, tender filling, but they wouldn't hold up on their own in any type of a traditional style truffle. So. So I add a little bit of my heavy cream, my chocolate here. In 3 phases. And I'll have all these fillings on display up here at the end of the evening if you'd like to walk around and taste them.
So if the butter was melted, it would be more oily and slicker.
Yeah, just the mouthfeel of the filling would be a little different. Yeah, exactly. It would almost have like a clarified butter, vegetable oil type. It wouldn't be as soft, unctuous. Could probably do a whole thing on broken ganache. I broke the ganache. How do we save a broken ganache, right? How do you save a broken ganache?
Eat it.
Get the cold cream, right? And a little bit of water. Yeah, a lot of times just a little bit of water will bring back a ganache, no problem. Who said throw it away?
Yeah.
It's only food costs.
Yeah, it's the cup, right? Now that's all the fillings. I hope that there was some useful information in that demonstration. I'm sorry I couldn't show. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't show everything from start to finish. But like I said, you know, the airbrush would probably get everywhere. But like I said, I hope a lot of the techniques made sense, and I hope they're applicable in everyone else's kitchen. And thank you.